Yo guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you've never been here before. So today I've just jumped on to do my weekly forecast, and this will be the forecast for the week commencing the 6th of June, ending on the 10th of June. But guys, as usual, just before we get started, I will just draw your guys' attention to the written version of this forecast, and the written version of this forecast will be linked in the video description. So guys, if you guys want to check out the written version, then do just click the link in the video description. So guys, let's just jump into it. So as requested last week, I will do the pound yen as well as these four pairs as well. So starting with Nzdusd. Alright, so Nzdusd, looking at the daily, we're still in an overall bearish structure. So we're literally in the same bearish structure that I've spoke about the last few forecasts. So within this overall bearish situation, we've got two order blocks which represent institutional supply. We've got the daily SR order block and we've got the impulsive order block. So for me, these are both valid areas for price to now continue away from following this whole bearish move. So the real thing is, which one are we going to expect price to continue away from? So the first one, which we could expect price to continue away from to then break structure again on the daily, is the daily SR order block. Now, as we can see from last week, price still hasn't actually closed above it. We've wicked above it, so we've grabbed liquidity from above this point, but we've not actually closed above it. So for me, this is still fully valid, and what we've actually seen so far is that price has failed to close above and is actually rejecting this area. So for me, from a daily perspective on NZD, really, the first thing that I'm looking at is just to follow this impulsive move here. So we've got impulse, correction, impulse. And what I'm expecting is for now price is just going to start selling out of this daily SR, and then we can break structure again. So going into this week, provided that we don't see that body close above, I do think it makes sense to look for sells, and I'll probably be following the 1 hour, the 4 hour in terms of looking for sells away from here. And I do think that it makes sense to look for sells away from here to then break structure on the daily again. Now, that said though, even though this is still fully valid, and that is my expectation on the daily right now, we still have this daily impulsive order block, which has a clear imbalance. So we've definitely got still reason for price to come higher. So considering that, we've got to look at both a bullish and bearish thesis on this pair at the minute. So whilst I would say that it's fully valid to sell, so if you guys get your entry pattern for sells coming away from here, then that's absolutely valid. We do still have this reason to come higher. So for me, if we do violate this and we do get up here, then I will still look for sells, and I'll be looking for sells out of the daily impulsive order block. But we probably won't be ending up with that sell move happening this week. So what I will do is just look at the hourly now. Alright, so in a situation where this area here isn't going to hold, then it's not really that important because we're essentially then just in a bullish situation coming up to this area here. So looking at the current 4 hour, what we had is we've got this bullish breaker structure, and then we have this bullish breaker structure. Now, after this bullish breaker structure, it left behind this order block. That was mitigated here. That's why we've got our order flow invalidation. So really, until price comes below there, we're still in a bullish order flow. So at the end of the day, despite what's happening on the daily, we are still in a fully bullish structure on the 4 hour. We are in bullish order flow, and at the end of the day, the institutions have been putting bullish orders into the market recently. So for me, until this order flow invalidation line actually gets taken out, I'm still anticipating that the institutions are going to continue with the bullish order flow on the 4 hour, which of course will mean that this area isn't going to hold here. So whilst, as I say, I do think it's valid to sell out of here, for me, I'm personally not interested in selling the daily until we see this 4 hour order flow broken, just because we are literally in a bullish situation on the 4 hour. So for me, I will follow that, and then once that bullish situation is broken, that's when I'll then look to take advantage of the sell move. So considering what's actually happened though, the most recent leg of bullish structure on the 4 hour is this leg here. Now, if we actually look, price hasn't managed to close above this leg, so we are actually still within a range from here down to this point here. We're still within this whole range, so we're basically in a range which has a bullish nature. So we've had this bullish break structure. We've then had the retracement down here to then mitigate, and then what we've had is this impulsive move away from the 4 hour order block. Now, if you look at this on the 1 hour, So what we've actually got here is just for 1 hour intent, which is just a 1 hour break of structure. So we've got a 1 hour break of structure coming away from the 4 hour point of interest, and this 1 hour has now left behind an order block. And if we look, this order block here, we've got a clear imbalance there, and this candle is very clear. We've got solid wick rejection, which grabs liquidity below this low, which also mitigated this whole 4 hour order block. So for me now, really, what I'll be looking at this week is for price to come off this 1 hour, which is coming away from a 4 hour, and then that will just continue the bullish order flow. So to me, that seems like the most natural progression of what's going on at the minute. That seems like the best situation, and that's pretty much for me the deciding point of whether or not we are going to be going bullish or bearish. So like I say, we could go bearish just because we're coming out of the daily SR. But if we take all this information into account and the fact that we've got a reason to go higher, I do just think that it looks more probable that we're going to be going bullish still. So for me, going into a week, the first thing I'll be looking at is buys out of this area here. Now, if that doesn't materialize, then I'll probably start looking for sells. So if we break through there, I'll start looking for sells. But other than that, I do just expect buys out of here. That'll take us up to continue to then go higher to the daily impulsive order block. So that is NZD this week for me. As always, guys, if anything's not clear, please do just leave a comment about it, and I will try and explain what I've been thinking if it's not clear to you guys. But with that, let's move on to AUD/USD. Alright, so as usual, if they're similar, I won't spend too long going into it. So on AUD/USD, it's literally the same structure. We've got the daily imp and the daily SR. So what I'm expecting from a daily perspective is that we could just continue down now, following this path here, with the from the daily SR, and that will create that new leg of structure, the new bearish leg. That said, however, while that's fully valid and we can look for sales out of here, we do still have this impulsive order block up here, and that's got imbalance, so we've still got that reason to come higher. Now, looking at a 4 hour, we've also got bullish order flow, and the order block which caused the most recent 4 hour break structure also grabbed liquidity below the previous low, which for me is a confluence, which adds to the probability to the order block. So what I'm actually looking at really on AU firstly is going to be price is now retracing with this move here. It's now retracing. It's going to come into this 4 hour order block, and then it will just continue up to take us into that daily impulsive order block. I mean, hopefully if you guys are watching with your low time frame entry patterns, you can get a much smaller stop than that. So that is really what I'm anticipating on AU this week. Of course, well, guys, like I say, if this does get broken, then I'll be absolutely happy to take sells, because then we're following the daily structure, and we'll have also had that market shift on the 4 hour. But as of right now, the 4 hour is just very bullish, and until this law gets broken here, we are in a fully bullish situation, and we also have a reason to go higher because of this daily input here. So for me, I'm anticipating buys out of here, but if that doesn't happen, if we do see this level broken, then I will expect that this order block is going to be holding on the daily, and then we can just look to follow sells away from that. So that is AU this week, guys. Pretty much the same as NZD, just a variation on it. So if, like I say, if there's anything not clear, just leave a comment. Alright, so let's look at pound dollar now. Alright, so pound dollar is quite a bit different, really. So what we've got on pound dollar, we did have the daily SR and the daily imp. However, at this point now, we've actually had that break of structure on the daily. So on pound dollar, we have actually now broken structure bullish. So looking at the whole situation, technically we are still bearish, because last time we've seen 2 consecutive breaks, it was in a bearish direction. Now, what's also happened is it's left behind this daily impulsive order block, which has got a massive imbalance, and that is where also we have our order flow invalidation due to the mitigation which took place there. So looking at the bigger picture on pound dollar, for me, I think at some point it's going to make sense for us to come back up here. I think when we do get back up here, it's also going to make sense then for us to see a significant sell-off, to basically, because there's a lot of supply in there, so I would expect a significant sell-off out of this area. Whether that'll break the structure and continue bearish, I'm not sure. But from where I'm looking right now, if it does get back up here before we break any of the structures, I will expect price to continue away from the daily imp to then break this low here. Now, that said though, We're still quite a distance away from that, and what's actually happened is we've had this bullish breaker structure. So we're currently in this situation here, this range between this low and this high. So we have a bullish breaker structure, and that's left behind a range. So what I'm now expecting is price is going to retrace, come down to then mitigate the order block, which caused that whole move, and then we can see a bullish move, which will take us up into this daily impulsive order block and clear this space. So for me, from a daily perspective, that's what I'm seeing on pound dollar. I'm expecting price to essentially retrace deeper into this leg of structure here, the bullish structure, and then we will see it just buy up into there. So in terms of where it could retrace into, the clearest point on the daily perspective is this area down here. That's where we've got imbalance, and that's what actually caused the whole move. So that is what I will be expecting price to come into. That said, though, it's got to be considered that we have got this area here, which is essentially that huge bearish candle there. So that candle does represent a lot of selling volume. So if they're going to be coming back down here eventually anyway, it may be that this area here is the more logical place, and we may just see price go up out of there. So for me, in terms of price going bullish to bring us up here, I think it could happen really from ideally from down here, but I do think it's very possible that it could come from here. So considering that, if we do start to see a transition out of either this area or this area going bullish, then I'll be happy to follow that for buys. So we've got our two buying opportunities this week on GU. And for me, I will be happy to follow buys out of either of those areas if we see the right entry model on the lower time frames. Now, also though, alright, so we've got that. So what I'm firstly expecting more is that price is going to go from where it is now to at least this first order block, which is 80 pips away, or failing that, it'll go to the other order block, which is about 230 pips away. So the first thing to look for this week really is sells on pound dollar following this 4 hour structure here, and then we can look for buys when we get into these areas down there. Alright, so in terms of the 4 hour on pound dollar, what we've had is we've had a break structure 1 there. So that's your 4 hour bearish intent. That's left behind this order block, and this box here is the 1 hour refinement of that. So what we've actually seen is price has reacted off this pretty much perfect, and it's now pushing downwards. So what I will expect when the market opens, I expect that we get this new breaker structure. If that happens straight away, then I'll be looking at supply within this wick to then trade away from. So for me, what I'm seeing on GU right now, as it stands, we're in a bearish 4 hour structure. So until that structure is violated, I will just be looking to follow it. Because obviously what could happen is that we just took liquidity above there. Now we're in a 4 hour bearish structure, and it's just going to keep going, because it's just not worth them to come this high up again. So for me, the first thing I look at is following the bearish structure on the 4 hour, but then I am also aware that we've got these two areas of demand, which are in the context of this daily bullish breaker structure range. So for me, we could buy up out of either of those areas, and that's absolutely fine. And if we do, it makes complete sense, and we could end up there. But the first thing to look at this week is following the 4 hour structure. And in terms of following the 4 hour structure, this is what I'm seeing. So that's my plan on GU. Sorry if that was a bit long, guys. It is quite a complex situation at the minute just because there's so much going on. But we've basically just got this area for sells on the 4 hour, and then we've got these two areas for buys on the daily. And then when we do eventually get up here, if we get up here, then that is completely valid to sell away from, and I do expect price will sell away from there quite significantly. So guys, that is pound dollar this week. So let's go on to euro dollar. Alright, so euro dollar, very similar situation to the pound dollar. So we've got our daily imp. We've also now broke structure bullish. So within the context of this whole bullish range, we've now got the extreme order block, which caused the demand originally, which caused that whole move. Then what we've also got is selling volume within this candle here. Selling volume with this candle here, which created the liquidity, which actually allowed the institutions to then cause this breaker structure move, get past all this. So based on that, what we've got is the direct cause demand OB and the extreme demand OB. So for me, whilst I do think we're going to end up here at some point and then we can sell off, like on pound dollar, we are currently in a bullish situation, and within that bullish situation, there's two reference points that we can look to buy from following institutional demand. And for me, that is this area here, and then we've got our more extreme area down there. So basically, on the daily perspective, what I'll be looking at is price is going to retrace down into these areas. When we get into this one, I will look for buying patterns on the 1 hour, my entry model on the 1 hour. And then failing that, if we do break through that, I will again look for my entry model for buys on the extreme demand OB. So I do think they're both valid areas to look for buys out of. So it's just about what the lower time frame structure tells us. And then regardless of whether this happens before we get into there or after we've touched into either of them, I will expect that once we get into this daily impulsive OB, that we're then going to be looking to sell off away from there following this whole bearish situation which has been developing. So for me, I do just think that once we get into here, we'll see a lot of sell volume coming in from institutions, and that will create lower lows again for euro dollar. So that is what I'm seeing overall on the daily on euro dollar. We're buying out of these areas, and the objective of that is to take us up into this daily impulsive order block, and then we can look to sell off away from there, respecting the bearish order flow which has been created by institutions. So that's the overall bigger picture of what I'm going to be looking at, but I will just show you guys a 4 hour now. So looking at the 4 hour, we've currently broke structure here. This actually didn't create a new high, so we are just in one structural leg in that sense. So we're currently in a range from here to here, and that range is bearish in nature. So what I'm expecting starting the week off is that we're going to see this bearish range play out, and then we'll see that basically bearish structure play out. So we'll see a bearish move from here, which should take us hopefully at least down into the direct cause order block. So for me, I can see we've still got imbalance up there. So what we could see at the start of the week is that price will come higher up, maybe wick into this area and mitigate fully that whole move, and then we'll see the bearish momentum kick in, which will take us down to mitigate these daily OBs. That said though, it doesn't necessarily have to come right to the extreme. We have already seen price start to react off it, so what we could see is that when market opens, price does just continue down, and with that we'll see price break through this low, which will then take us into this OB here. So really on euro dollar, the first thing I'm going to be looking at next week is sells following this 4 hour range, and that should give us a decent move really, because it's 150 pips back down here, so we should get a decent move out of that if this range does play out. So the first thing I'm looking at is the 4 hour range playing out for sells, and then when we do get into this area, at that point look for buys. If not, follow the 4 hour structure down until we get to this area. Again, at that point look for buys, and if not, keep following 4 hour structure. And then if we do get buys out of either of these areas, then I'll continue to follow for buys, expecting price to come up into this area, and then I'll look to sell off out of there. So that is your dollar this week. Pound yen now, final pair, guys. So pound yen, this is what I've been predicting on pound yen for a long time now, but overall we're in this bullish situation. Within that bullish situation, we've taken out the most recent low, which has created this bearish break structure. So we're now in a situation where we're still overall bullish, but we do have this bearish order block here, which caused the most recent bearish break. So what I'm anticipating now, based on this break, is that now we're up in here, price is going to start to sell off out of this area, because they've now mitigated this buy volume they put into the market. So it will now sell off out of this area, and the purpose of that from an institutional perspective is to bring us down here into the daily imp, and then they can mitigate the orders within the daily impulsive order block, which is pretty much following the order flow from there. And then what we'll see once we do get down here, we'll see price buy up to create higher highs. So if this does play out like that, then that could be an absolute monster move if we can get the buys out of there. But the first thing we've got to look at is what's going to happen in the next few weeks. If we are going to end up down here eventually, then I am going to be looking that we're going to be getting sells out of here to take us down there, and I do think that that's the only logical place really for price to come out of, take us down there. So for me, if this week it's absolutely ideal time to be looking for sells on the pound yen, which will then take us down there. So within that, Within that though, what we need to remember always is the 4 hour is still what's going on, like on the lower time frame. So regardless what's happening on the daily, if 4 hours bullish, then the 4 hour can just continue to go bullish. So with that said, looking at the 4 hour, what we are currently, we are just in a bullish range. That range is from this low to this high. So for me, until we break this 4 hour range, we are still fully bullish on pound yen. So if we do get into this low here and we start to see buying patterns coming up for your entry model, if you start to see the buying patterns on the lower time frame, then absolutely it's fine to just continue buying out of there. Because guys, whilst in the ideal situation, we are going to come all the way down here, fill this imbalance and mitigate this order block. We have to remember that, you know, the institutions don't always do business like that. What can happen is we are just going very aggressively up, and they may just want to continue going very aggressively up. So since we've only had one breaker structure to the low, we don't know if they're going to now follow through with this intent or if they are just going to violate it and continue higher. So that's why you've also got to keep an open mind to the 4 hour. So for me, on pound yen, if I'm trading it, I will see the 4 hour here. We can look for buys out of there. Hopefully though, the 4 hour breaks, and then we can look for sells out following that away from the daily intent, and then we can target this impulsive order block down here with those sells. So guys, that's pound yen this week. So it sells out of the daily, buys following the 4 hour, and that is pretty much it for pound yen this week. So guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this forecast. I hope you got value. Let me know if there's any feedback on the forecast or if you've got any questions about it, guys. But other than that, I hope you guys all have a safe trading week. Follow your trading plans, and thank you very much for watching, guys. Cheers.